A legend in town tells that the fairy flowers in the meadow will give a fairy if you leave a kiss on the flower. So I head into the meadow and I see the fairy flower. A flower made of petals softer than silk, but somehow the flowers are never able to actually be opened or cut. Not even with my silver knife could the flower be cut. After failing a few times to cut either the petals or the stem, I sigh and I stop. Laying my head underneath the flower petals, I pucker up and kiss the flower. A slight sweet taste is from it. Staring up the flower, I don't see the flower move or open at all, so I sit and wait. Maybe it will take some time for the flower to open up with the fairy. Staring up at the distant clouds moving above the flower, I smile at the patterns. It's fun to see these beautiful things, even when the flower moves slowly. So what look like distant shapes and even trees. I smile, knowing that this test of the legend was turning out so peaceful. It's not what always peaceful testing out legends. I once tested to see if a troll lived under the bridge. Instead, it led to a new merchant in town. And seeing if there was a vampire in the abandoned cottage proved that it wasn't a vampire, but a family of ghouls. Shivering at that thought and rubbing on the scar on my left hand, I saw movement close to my face. Sitting up and sitting cross-legged, I cup my hands beneath the fairy flower. I keep my heart rate slow. Maybe it was a bee, or a beetle, or maybe some other phenomena that explained the legend of the fairies and the fairy flowers. But the flower began to slowly open. The sweet smell of the flower smelled much stronger. It smelled kind of like butterscotch. In the center of the flower was something I couldn't believe was real. A very small fairy girl was in the flower. She was the size of a bumblebee to me. Her wings looked like a bumblebee's wings, short and fat, and the sunlight shining through her wings. The young girl looked like she was maybe 3 years old. Her hair was fairly short and kind of red. She smiled at me, and her dress was a yellow sunflower petal as she crawled to me. Starting weak, but she got stronger as she took her first step towards my hand, which was holding up the edge of the fairy flower. The girl stepped onto my hand and hugged my thumb. Sure enough, she was holding on to my thumb. Lifting her up to my face, I saw her closer as she stared back at me. Daddy? She asked me. She let go of my thumb and hugged my nose instead, nuzzling into it. Her voice continued to make some sounds that weren't words, but her noises showed that she was happy with me. After a few minutes of her hugging into my nose, she let out a large yawn and curled up into my hand. Sure enough, the young fairy was asleep. She was like a little baby in this world, and my heart melted at her sleeping. She had no care in the world, knowing nothing, and just now brought into existence by a kiss, and already loving the first person she saw. I held her close to me as I walked to my home, hoping my mom would tell me how to take care of my new baby. I didn't expect the legend to turn out this way, but I don't think for once I'm upset that a legend proved to be true.